Good evening, and welcome to the Overlook Drive-In. The Overlook Hotel was built over a century ago on an old Native American burial ground. Just recently, we added a beautiful state-of-the-art drive-in screen out back. You don't just get a peaceful, cozy stay at the Overlook, but you get to enjoy one of the finest outdoor cinemas as well. At the Overlook Drive-In, we don't just watch and review major motion picture films. Here, we rank them too. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. My name is Zach. We hope you enjoy your stay. Enjoy the show, and if you will, please follow Mr. Grady to room 237. He will take care of you. What's on tonight's menu? Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. The Shining was released May 23rd, 1980, and is based on the novel by Stephen King. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, the movie stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Danny Lloyd, and Scatman Crothers. The Shining was made for approximately $19 million and brought in around $47.3 million at the global box office. The Shining was distributed by Warner Brothers. The Shining was an incredibly difficult film to make because of some of Kubrick's antics on set. The script would at times go through numerous rewrites, so many so that Jack Nicholson often wouldn't even bother learning his lines, and there became some serious concerns with Shelley Duvall's physical and mental health. Considering the incredible amount of drama behind the camera, it is almost astonishing this movie has left the legacy that it has. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare your scorecards. Without further delay, here are your hosts, Mike and Sean. Enjoy the show.
Thanks so much, Zach, for that lovely introduction, man. That's fantastic. And I don't know about you, something makes me feel very uneasy about going to screen 237. Those numbers, I feel like I've heard them somewhere. Joining me on this one, it's Mr. Mike Bish himself. What's going on, dude?
Going good, man. It's been a good day. I'm excited to go into episode 1 of this, and there's no better way, in my opinion, to kick it off with The Shining, man. It was we both watched this film over the past few days, and it was a hell of a watch, man. I can watch this film. I watched this film multiple times throughout the year. So super excited to be here though and get the Overlook Drive-In going. It's gonna be a good one.
So if you're new to the show, what's going to happen is each and every week, Mike and I are going to watch a new movie. It's not a live watch along, although I believe we're going to offer possibly one of those a month on Patreon. We'll figure it out. Mike's making me jealous. He intentionally wore his Overlook hat for this episode. So, which I went to my Spencer's recently, by the way, and they did not have it there. So
yeah, it's not there. But Halloween's going to come up, so they're getting ready to stock all kinds of things. So
hope so, man. I love that hat. But yeah, movie number one, we figured we have a movie review and rank show called The Overlook Drive-In. It probably makes some sense to start with the movie that made The Overlook famous, and that is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Zach just showed us the menu for tonight's episode and all sorts of wonderful details in the making of and how much the movie cost and some of the stories behind Kubrick's antics, if you will, on filming the movie. I do want to just touch on that one quickly. I've heard the stories before of Shelley Duvall and everything she went through on set, physically and mentally. But I didn't know that Kubrick was a little bit of I don't want to say perfectionist. I don't want to say prima donna, but I also didn't know things were that crazy on set of this film until we actually started to do some research about the film.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that, to be honest with you. I heard a little bit about Shelley as well. I didn't know Jack. Oh, well, yeah, I didn't know Jack grew frustrated at times as well. So that's really interesting to hear. Obviously, Kubrick's movies are, he is who he is, which is, I guess, hearing those stories can be a negative thing at times. For us on the outside looking in who don't have to, be in that environment and deal with it pretty much all day. Zach mentioned how long they were on set for, and just how long those hours were, and how intensified those hours were. So us on the outside don't have to deal with that. So we appreciate Kubrick for what he delivers to us, but we don't get that inside look really ever, unless we get some behind the scenes stuff. But that was new to me.
Yeah, I love The Shining. It is my favorite horror movie ever. Halloween 4 close second. And I had no idea that things were that nuts behind the scenes, and I had no idea that Jack was learning his lines right before takes because of how just disastrous it was, you know, before scenes and how many rewrites. It almost sounds like friggin' World Wrestling Entertainment when you hear about, well, Vince McMahon came in and rewrote this script and that script, and then to find out that Kubrick was doing that on set. It also maybe explains a little bit why Stephen King really doesn't like Kubrick's version of The Shining.
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that interesting. I've never really actually dug into it and really researched why Stephen King has such an issue with it. I don't know if you know exactly why or know the roundabouts of why. I know things are, it doesn't reflect the book. I guess is kind of what I hear to a T, or in some sense, I'm not exactly sure. I never really dug into it, but it's a real shock to me that it was a shock to me when I first heard that he didn't like that film, because I adore this film. I love this film. It's my second favorite horror film of all time. So yeah, I mean and I love Stephen King. I mean, he's delivered us great stories that have, obviously been in the novels and on the big screen, the things that we love. So I love Stephen King for everything that he has given us as far as storytelling and things like that. So to hear him not agree with one of my favorite films of all time, or not like this film, that was a little disheartening.
Yeah, I don't know the exact specifics behind it, other than I know it doesn't line up with his vision of the story. I believe he even had some issues with the mini series that had come out, the straight to TV, I think 2-part series they did on it. Um, Stephen King's just super picky, and I know it made things hard for Mike Flanagan when he came up to doing Doctor Sleep, because they approached that from, okay, we're going to do a sequel not just to the novel but to the movie, and we're going to try to honor both. And I think they did a wonderful job with it, but it's probably an episode for like 49 episodes from now. So we'll we'll wait and see on that front.
Can't wait.
Dude, do you remember the first time that you saw The Shining and what your response to it was?
Yeah, I do. So my first time seeing The Shining, I was actually really young. My first horror film that I ever saw was the original It, the miniseries. But I saw it when they put it out on video. So it was a straight VHS tape you could watch. I was about 6 or 7 years old when I first saw that. I was introduced to that by my uncle, introduced to Halloween by my uncle. And then the next film, it's crazy how I remember this at such a young age, was The Shining, though. And I don't know my exact thoughts of what I was feeling at the time, but I just knew that the film scared the living shit out of me. Um, and those three films in a row scared the living shit out of me. I actually think I just made a tweet the other day. The two movies that still creep me out to this day, and I still get goosebumps from, if I watch them in the dark with the sound all the way up, is that original It film, and The Shining. For many reasons that we'll dive into on this one. I'm sure that has a lot to do with the age I was at when I first saw it. But yeah, man, I remember, I was at my uncle's house, or at my grandmother's house. My uncle was living with my grandmother. And we would just have Friday night movie nights. And I remember sitting on the couch with him, uh, big bag of popcorn. That's what we love to do. Grab a big bag of popcorn and watch horror flicks. My mom and dad wasn't too uh, pleased with that and wouldn't let me watch horror films that young. I had to go a couple more years after that. So going over to his house is something that I got to do. So being able to sit on the couch with my uncle, and watched this film, I just remember um, the score really stuck with me in this film. That's kind of what creeps me out the most, in a sense. That the first thing that comes to my mind when I remember it at such a young age and seeing it for the first time. It gave me goosebumps. It still gives me goosebumps. Um, Jack Nicholson's portrayance in this, which we'll jump into, sticks out to me. And then just honestly, I kind of put myself in. Um, I don't want to say. I kind of put myself in Danny's shoes at a young age like that. Just thinking about how would I be as a kid if I was in that situation. And it just freaked me the hell out. And kind of maybe why I did the same with it. Was involved with kids, and I was a kid. So anytime things could possibly be closer to you in real life, which those kids, in which Danny was in The Shining, and putting myself in that situation, it scares you a little bit more. You get a little bit more of reality in a story that's not true. So I think the score, the acting, and just Danny Torrance in this film, uh, being around his age in a sense, really creeped me out.
Yeah, it's a different kind of beast. Even watching it today, I'm almost 34 years old here in a few days. And the first time I seen this movie, I think I was probably about 10, in and around that age. And I was at my uncle's, conveniently enough. And he
It's
had
all
this,
it's always the damn uncle, man. It's
yeah,
always the uncle.
he had this big backsplit house. Um, he was divorced. So there was myself and my cousin, and that was it. Huge house. He had already passed out. It's got to be like 11 o'clock at night. Super dark out. It's a stormy night too, so like you get loud thunder at times too. And it was one of the,
Love
like
it.
you didn't exactly have the world's most modern house, so like you really really heard the weather outside. And if you know The Shining, some of the big things that stand out there is the pacing of it. Like you Mike posted the other day, this is not movie related, that he loved WWE SummerSlam, and I was happy for him and other people. But the one thing I noticed while watching that event is there's like 16 camera cuts in like 8 seconds. That's not an exaggeration. Legitimately, it was like 15 or 16 camera cuts in less than 10 seconds. But there's movies that do similar things to that as well. But not this movie. No, no, no. This movie is the king of the long drawn out shot, and we're gonna keep going with this conversation that might not seem like it means much, but if you're paying attention, certain things that happen during the current conversation in the movie start to become relevant. Shots of characters just walking off in a certain direction, Danny riding his little bike through the hallways. Like this movie is fantastic at drawing out your suspense. It's a suspenseful film. It is a slow burn. It's a really slow burn of a movie. Um, but I think the two things that got me the most was one, the setting, because like that could have been like any old school hotel ever. Um, there was this store that used to be up here called Nob Hill Farms, and it was like Costco before Costco, and like seeing all the old Heinz ketchup tin containers and all that in the kitchen always brings me back to there. It's just such this retro vibe. But I think the fact that like as you're walking through this facility with the characters, and with me being the age I was, it was scary because it was like, oh, I could totally have been at a place like this. And the sound, there's some really messed up pieces of the score in this movie that are haunting and perfect for what it's dealing with. So it was just a perfect mixed bag of things, and this film petrified me for years.
Yeah, I love hearing that, man, because so I watched it. I watched it Saturday night. So I was able to watch it in the dark. my surround sound on. And conveniently, it was storming outside. We've had rain here in Virginia for past 7, 8, 9 days. It feels like so. It's been raining nonstop, and dude, it still gives me goosebumps. It's crazy how many times I've seen the film. I know what's coming, but I'm telling you, man, as soon as certain scenes hit, as soon as some of the score hits and it bleeds through those speakers, the ones that are right there, right near my ears, man, it just still gives me goosebumps. And I actually watched The Shining probably about 4 months ago, and this sticks out to me too. I fell asleep watching it. It was super late at night. I'm the weirdo that falls asleep to horror movies. And I fell asleep and I woke up to a score that freaked me the hell out of my sleep. So it's a film. I don't get scared by a lot these days. But The Shining is one of three movies that come to my head that still really scare me, in a sense, to this day. So The Shining and It will always be that for me. I don't think those are ever going to go away. And a lot of that has to do with the age. And you brought it up. You brought Danny riding around on his little bicycle in the hotel, and just how long that sequence was. And you kind of get invested in that. And then obviously when he gets off, takes a step and looks at 237, or when he comes around the corner and sees the twins. I mean, it's so well done. And it's just going to stick with me. I mean, it stuck with me 29 years. So, or 26, 20, whatever, however old I was when I first saw it. So, super interesting though, man, that, I'll say I'm glad that our love for this film is like top notch. Like,
Oh, it's huge.
I enjoy it. Yes.
But I understand why certain people that don't like slow burn movies could never get into this film. I get it. I do. That it's not for everybody. Although you just made the mistake I was hoping you wouldn't make during this episode, because when I watched this with Jade's like, one of you two are going to slip. And when you do, you got to mention it. I'm
Oh,
like,
let's
"Okay."
go.
So everybody always calls those two girls the twins. But they're not twins. They look like twins. They're presented as twins. They may as well be twins. Everybody, I would say 90% of fans of this movie make this mistake, myself included, all the time. And like, even though they mentioned that they're 8 and 10-year-old sisters, and then they show them like literally within 5 minutes of that, and it's like, oh, there's the twins again. I'm like, oh, fuck, no, it's not the twins. Shit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I continue to make that mistake, obviously. So
Well, we're in the same thing, right? You just assume it's such a
yeah, actually,
not like there's any height disparity between the two.
yeah, I actually met them 2 years ago, I'm sorry, 3 years ago before the pandemic at a convention. So yeah, very interesting.
Unless that I'm completely wrong about this, and that they are in fact twins. Feel free to correct us in the comment section down below. And by the way, if you are watching this live for the first time, this is our brand new show, the Overlook Drive-In. Brand new episodes every single Monday right here on the channel. We have a ton of wonderful content coming your way for the Overlook Drive-In. Our first 6 episodes look like this. It's The Shining. Today, August 29th, I Know What You Did Last Summer. September 6th, Hush. September the 13th, Jaws, the IMAX version that's being released. September 20th, Quiet Place, and September 27th, A Quiet Place 2. The funny thing about all this is I haven't seen either Quiet Place movie or Hush yet. So I'm pretty stoked to dive into
Wow.
this. And then we won't totally give it away, but the reason why we stopped our schedule at September 27th is October kind of like writes itself for us.
So you're a Flanagan fan, so you'll like Hush.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. I know it's his
It's
love letter to Halloween. And
Yeah, it's crazy though, because somebody pointed it out when Midnight Mass came out. I'm not gonna say anything. It's not a spoiler, but somebody walks up. There's a book involved, and the book is titled Midnight Mass.
Yeah, I've heard.
So yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, man, I'm super excited to get into these films. So for the twins things, for the twin comment, they are twins in real life, but they are not supposed to be twins in the movie.
Gotcha. Understood. Maybe that's why they refer to them as the twins then. That could be.
But you're right though. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't even catch that in the movie.
Yeah, because they're
Yeah.
they're what's his faces. Oh my god, I can't remember the name the guy's name. The Overlook caretaker that
Charles Grady.
Yeah,
Charles Grady.
that's it. Charles Grady. The one that spills the shit all over Jack and then goes and cleans him up in the bathroom. So
yeah,
no. So that is a common mistake a lot of people make. Without further ado, though, the way this works is we have 5 topics on this show. Our show is a scorecard, and as you see here, the graphic comes up on screen, and there it is. Our scorecard is broken down into 5 separate categories. Each of these categories is worth 10 points apiece. And then at the end of the show, Mike and I add up our scores, and I will have my score, Mike will have his score, and then we will have a score that represents the Overlook Drive-In moving forward. And you will be able to find the scorecard over on our new Facebook group. So look over there. And I'm sure we'll tweet it out too, but having an actual folder over on the Facebook group makes it easier for you guys to have access to past scores. Topic number 1, man, story and pacing. For me, like, I sat there making notes throughout this watch through, and I found myself writing down, and yes, I still use pen and paper while writing down notes. I found myself making notes as soon as the movie started. The way the movie starts, the helicopter shot on the lake and then eventually on the highway in the mountains, the incredible eerie score. Like, if you like movies that are meant to make you feel uncomfortable, then this movie probably has you about 20 seconds in my opinion.
I love it, dude. I absolutely love this score. I mean, it's just, I mean, you could throw it on to somebody who doesn't know The Shining, and I guarantee you, if you ask them how do they feel about this, they're like, that's kind of eerie. You know, it's kind of gives me chills, kind of scary. You know, it hits us differently because, you know, obviously we coincided with The Shining. But all in all, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was what I really loved about it is they didn't waste no time. They kind of just got right into it, right into the score.
Yeah, and just I don't know that opening shot, that opening sequence. You get the helicopter shot over the lake. You get the tree looking thing there, the highway on the side of the mountain. It's a very eerie feeling to begin the movie. Suspense is built right off the get go. Story and pacing wise, as far as the story is concerned, I love movies that make you think and make you question what's actually happening, make you question, okay, is he actually losing his mind or is something else going on here? And prior to Dr. Sleep, there's a lot of people that would still say much of the Shining could be considered subjective. Now, Dr. Sleep does a pretty good job at filling a lot of those blanks in. But I love The Shining for that. I love a movie that is going to test your mind, make you think about it, make you put yourself in that situation, as you alluded to earlier, Mike, with Danny, and make you try to, go along the journey with them. And would you make some of the same decisions that they make? The story for this movie is fantastic. It's a story that probably many of us can relate to today. It's a story of isolation and just some truly horrible things that can happen to the human mind when you're isolated that far away from people for that long. And Jack was already battling his own demons going into that position. So, like, there's definitely a lesson to be learned here from the story that is in The Shining. It's just what you make of it. In terms of the way it's paced, though, I gotta say, Mike, watching it today, and it could have been because I was watching it in an atmosphere that is not ideal. I think you're supposed to watch this movie with, like you mentioned earlier, the lights off, late at night, nothing else going on. And I watched it in broad daylight. And this is the second time in a row I've watched the Shining in broad daylight, and I don't think it works as well. But I do think the movie, and I'm all for slow burns. I think the movie's a little drawn out at times. Would be my only complaint in terms of story and pacing. And I'll give my score once you talk about story and pacing yourself, man. What did you think about the story and pacing in Kubrick's The Shining?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the story first. Obviously we talked about that opening. Had me right from the jump. To be honest with you, I was scared from the jump, and I still get goosebumps from that opening scene because of that, score. So the camera work for that, everything that we talked about, absolutely love. Overall for the story, I like stories that make you think too. There's stories that really challenge us out there, like Jordan Peele, for example. But I kind of gravitate to movies that are like his, because they make you think. And The Shining was a movie that makes you think. And Sean mentioned it. For me, it took a good amount of watches for me to kind of understand exactly, obviously, because I was a child. But the older I gotten, even when I was a teenager, it took me a few watches to understand really what was going on. And there were still questions that I still had because I hadn't read the book. And I know it was a little bit different than Stephen King's, his novel, but in a sense. But I still had questions, and Dr. Sleep helped me answer those questions. I love the way, this isn't a Dr. Sleep stream, but it really dives into exactly more, in depth of exactly what The Shining is. And, for a lot of people who watch The Shining for the first couple times, they're not going to understand what's going on here. They're going to interpret it a certain way, kind of like I did. So I enjoyed the story a lot. As far as the pacing, I would, to be honest, man, I didn't really have too many problems with the pacing. It was slow burned, I will give you that. And I do enjoy it. But I didn't really have too many problems with the pacing. I thought it was fine. I thought that they throw a lot of good, you know, things in there that kind of keep you intrigued as soon as the movie goes out with Danny. So that first like 15-20 minutes, we do get some things outside of that opening scene that do have me intrigued. So for me, I thought the pacing was fine. I didn't think it was garbage. I didn't think it sucked or it was too slow. I understand where you're coming from. I've watched The Shining with a few people, and it's one of the first things that they say. So I definitely can see that. But for me, I thought the pacing was fine, and I absolutely adored the story.
What did you give it out of 10 for story and pacing?
We're combining those, correct?
Yes, combined.
For me, I gave it a 9.5.
Oh, so did I. So we're both 9.5s on story and pacing. So strong start here for The Shining and the Overlook Drive-In. Now on to acting. So the performances in this movie are really, really good considering the shit that was going on behind the scenes and what Kubrick was pulling on everybody. However, there's I don't like, it's almost hard to believe that Jack was coming up with his material right before they were doing takes, or memorizing the lines right before doing takes, because he's incredible in this film. Like, if it's not for the believability of him in this film, that he's actually losing his mind, this film does not work at all. So it starts with Jack's performance. And I think Shelley and Danny Lloyd, who plays Danny in the movie, are fantastic in this. They're truly incredible, in my opinion. And I really liked, trying to find the actor's name here. I don't want to say it wrong. Scottman Crothers in the movie, who plays Dick. He was always really, really good. I know you already brought up Dr. Sleep, and so did I. Spoiler alert here, by the way, for Dr. Sleep. That character appears in Dr. Sleep. It's a recast, obviously, because it's many, or they brought someone else in for the role, anyways. And I thought that they did a wonderful job of capturing the original actor's performance in that movie. And so whenever I watch it, I always dig his performance. But Jade and I were joking around today, kind of like he comes all that way for them, all that way. And as soon as he gets in,
Oh man,
he gets axed. Like the dude
he's
doesn't last
done.
2 minutes in there. Oh man. I mean,
Poor guy.
big time credit for an A for effort, but he got it pretty quick. But I quite dug the acting in this film, man. The only negative I'll say, and this is probably going to make me sound like a cast member of Seinfeld, is the way Shelley Duvall runs drives me up the fucking wall. Because they're like, I smoked a joint earlier, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie with Jade, and I just start up the stairs. Oh, dude, it's impossible to take seriously. Like, there's got to be parodies of that everywhere, all over the internet. I've never checked for them, but surely there's some.
Has to be.
Acting for you, dude.
Dude, I thought it was phenomenal. So we hear these stories about these actors when they play these dark scenes about getting into character and certain things that they do to have to get into character. We rarely see that. What they do, that's kind of a private moment for them. In a lot of cases, some we do. But for this one, there is a few scenes online from behind the scenes of The Shining before they go live or before action is yelled out for them to go into the scene of Jack Nicholson just absolutely like smacking the hell out of himself. And just getting into character. And I absolutely thought that was awesome to see, super phenomenal by him. And the fact that he had, came up with those lines or practicing his lines, getting the lines changed, whatever he did, it's hard to believe that. Like you said, I thought Shelley Duvall did absolutely incredible in her role too. Obviously outside of the running. But I mean, she did. I mean, I thought she was. I don't want to say she's overlooked, obviously, because Jack is the main guy in this situation. But she did really, really good in this film. And obviously, Danny is the young child did great himself. But yeah, man, Shelley Duvall is probably my standout. I know that's kind of weird to say because Jack is Jack Torrance, and Jack Nicholson, who plays Jack Torrance, is obviously what he went through and what I explained is, he's the main guy, and he did absolutely phenomenal as well. But yeah, man, I thought the acting was great in this film. Obviously, there's not that many people in this film, which I think makes the movie even better. So I thought it was really, really good, and I was very satisfied with it.
Lloyd always made me feel uncomfortable. Whenever he was at the bar with Lloyd, I don't know, something about Lloyd always hit
It's
me
creepy.
the wrong way.
Fucking creepy.
And even Stuart, who's the one that gets in the job at the beginning, there's something about just like his aura and energy that like makes it feel like he's almost getting one over on him, even though he's being upfront about what has happened there, or as upfront as he can be anyway. So almost every element of this movie is creepy. And by the way, if anybody knows, because I haven't done the research for this and we want you guys to participate in this discussion in the comment section, let us know about any thoughts or questions that you might have on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining down below, please. I'm curious how they filmed the elevator with the blood and all that keeps getting shown again in the movie. For back then, I don't know if there's a clever trick behind it or if it's just a bunch of red water coming down there that they filmed once and
Man,
I've
I'm
never
trying to
seen it.
remember if that scene or if they dive into it into the behind the scenes or the making of it. I can't remember if they do or not. So I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that because it was actually really, really good. So I might
They
spend some time rewatching that.
they shot this movie for over a year or so. Back in 1979, it wasn't like there was a wide variety of options of how to do a shot like that. So the options would have been limited. Dude, for acting for me, not to sound like a broken record, 9.5.
I'm going 10.
10. No, Mike's a perfect 10 on the acting.
I can't pick out. Okay, the running. I'm not gonna knock her point 0.5 for that. I'll let her slide on that one because I thought she did really good. So honestly, man, I'm going 10, and that's really rare. But when I watched it this Saturday, I kind of went into it knowing that we were going to do this episode, not looking for things that were wrong with the film, but seeing if things would stick out to me. I was just in a different mind frame when I went in to watch this, and when it came to the acting, I knew this is something that that we were going to talk about, and I can't really pick out any flaws, man. I really, really can't. So I'm not one of the people that like, oh, it can't be perfect. Like, there's something that has to be wrong here. If I personally don't think there's nothing wrong here in this situation, I'm going to stay that. I'm not gonna spend 40 minutes trying to find something wrong. If I personally don't think nothing was wrong.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, man. Totally understandable. Um, Also, I want to point out that like Jack starts coming after Wendy and Danny fairly early in that film. I think a lot of people think that it's like the last 20 minutes. It's literally the whole back half of the movie. Uh,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
like
So I understand. I
it's probably
understand.
the longest chase scene in cinema history. Like
Yeah.
it's
So I
basically an hour of him chasing them.
so I understand the pacing scene for everybody. Like, I get that it is kind of a slow burn to start off, but you're rewarded on that back half. So you know.
Yep, big time, and it's creepy, super creepy. But that brings us to hang on. You said 10 for that, right, Mike?
I
That
did.
brings us to cinematography and set design. And this movie, considering when it was made, considering when it came out, May the 23rd, 1980, it looks beautiful. It's incredible. It has you visually from the opening shot, the helicopter shot, going over the island and then following the roadway on the side of the mountain. The few exterior shots they got of the Overlook. A lot of the inside of the Overlook is just built sets and stuff um, that look fantastic, that look amazing, by the way, and are incredible. Um, I There's not much I can say, dude, about this film other than its realism, its simplicity, and just the incredible tones and colors that are used in the film to give almost like this washed out gray feeling to it at times is truly wonderful. And the cinematography and set design for me is absolute perfection. 10 out of 10. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going 10 out of 10 too. Again, you think about the big thing here for me is you think about the time that this film was shot. Um, just what they were able to do with the camera angles. A scene that kind of sticks out to me is when Jack is banging through the door and the camera is following the axe back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I thought that was a phenomenal decision to do. And little stuff like that just I really enjoy and I appreciate because I thought it was something a little different. It's just not, the camera set on the door and you just see Jack, it's following that axe. So that's a scene that sticks out to me. The Overlook in itself is a character in this movie. Um, and anytime that a set design or a place in a film can be as strong as this is into making it its own character, I think it's always a plus. um there's nothing that I can debunk here. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, like I said.
Yeah, so pure perfect score across the board on cinematography and set design. Um, the writing and directing of this film is interesting now, knowing some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes. Um, I'd love to sit here and say that it was perfect, but knowing what went on behind the scenes, I don't know if you can call it that, regardless of what you think of the process or not. The pure nightmare that Shelley Duvall went through probably should never have happened. I think one of those scenes, I forget which one it is, but he made her redo it like over 100 times, which is just overkill. Um, However, that aside, all things considering, the Animal House that was Kubrick at that time, seemingly, uh, things turned out pretty freaking good in the acting and directing. Pardon me, the writing and the directing department of this film. It doesn't feel corny. It feels like the film constantly has direction, even if you don't understand that direction. It's always pointing somewhere. So I'm going to give the writing and the directing on The Shining a solid 9 out of 10. Mike, where are you with the writing and directing? I'd say it's
No
better.
lie.
It's still really good, but yeah.
No, it is good. And you think about the stuff that happened behind the scenes. I mean, one take over or one scene over 100 times, that is absolutely ridiculous. Um, you think about that stuff and you think about everything that they had to deal with, and it's a lot. You said that they what, over a year for this film to be filmed. So it's tough, but I did give it a 9 as well, a 9 out of 10. Um, I just think despite all of that, we just talked about the cinematography, and you think about the shots in that film that really stick out. Those are due to Stanley Kubrick. No matter what you think of him or how you think that he treated his cast members in this film, we get these beautiful shots and this everything that we love about this film, as far as the camera angles and things like that, because of him. And for that reason, I am going to give it a 9. And the other stuff that I mentioned is pretty disheartening if you sit back and think about it. But things, I don't want to say things were different back then, but things were a lot more acceptable in a sense back then, sadly. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 out of 10 as well. And I mean, you go back and you look at the scores we've given so far, and you can see where our love for this film lies. But yeah, I thought the writing and directing were pretty good, man.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of complaints there. Obviously, knowing some of the behind the scenes stuff now, there's definitely some things to be aware of for sure. But at the end of the day, it's still pretty panned out pretty good. Pardon me. That brings us to sound and score. It's perfection here again for me, man. It's 10 out of 10. It's amazing. It's like I said, like that opening tone, the dun 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 dun, and like the wash, rinse, and repeat of that, except for some, it subtly changes and subtly starts to draw out longer and longer, building that suspense. It's honestly incredible. The sound design in the movie is incredible too. Like the thumping of the tennis ball,
Oh yeah.
the empty wall there, every time it hits, there's just like this uneasy feeling. Or Danny, when he's pedaling the bike in the hallway, there's nothing else, all you hear is Danny pedaling the bike, which is awesome. It's literally the perfect example of sound and score, in my opinion.
I'm going 10 out of 10. I think one of the first things I said when I talked about the film, when we opened this podcast, was the score and the sound. And it, Sean alluded to it. That opening, dun, dun, I mean, that just, it hits on so many levels. And I mentioned it before. It gives me goosebumps. It gave me goosebumps. Still gives me goosebumps. So, And I'm glad Sean brought it up, but the sounds in the film, like with the tennis ball, the one that sticks out to me is Danny riding throughout the Overlook on that bike, and you hear the, I mean, it's just so beautiful when you hear the sounds of the tire going against that floor, and then you don't really hear it because it's going right across carpet, and then it picks back up again. That's just absolutely beautifully done, beautifully sounded, and it's perfect for me too, man. 10 out of 10. Can't No complaints. I think this, and I've mentioned, I think the score is what really creeps me out a lot in this film. Outside of Jack, it's definitely going to be the score.
It definitely gets you, especially when you're at home and you have that surround sound going. It's late at night, it's dark. Your visual, like, what would be epic is a really awesome VR of the Overlook slash The Shining. Go in there and experience that, except for don't just have what they show in the movie, have the whole Overlook, so that when the movie parts, you really get to experience that, and have the sound playing too, because it's not just the visuals on screen that make the movie what it is. It's absolutely the sound too, much like the way, what would Halloween would have been like without the John Carpenter score to begin with. So yeah, that gets us through our categories here, Mike. So just to recap, I had story and pacing at 9.5, as did Mike. Acting, I had at 9.5. Mike had at 10. Cinematography, we both had at 10. Writing and directing, we both had at 9. And sound and score, we both had at 10. Now, I believe that gives Mike 47, 48.5 out of 50. So we will get back to you on Mike's score percentage here in just a second. Mine was 48 out of 50, so there's not much of a difference. But Mike, really quickly here, man, I want to bring you down to the Gold Room. All right, so the Gold Room segment in honor of The Shining. Again, this is a Shining themed movie, film review and rank podcast. The Gold Room is, it's sort of the room where we flirt with the devil. We drink the Kool-Aid, if you will, and talk about things we would change about the movie if we were the ones in charge, if we were the ones with the power, if we were the ones that took the axe into our hands. And for me, mine's simple, man. I would cut about 15 minutes out of this movie. I would trim it down, and I would probably darken it a bit. There's one thing I would have liked to see more at the end, is have it be a little darker, because seeing the Overlook at nighttime in Doctor Sleep was just mind-blowingly good. And I think we missed an opportunity to see it on the way film looked back then in 1980 in the dark like that. So that they were the big changes that I would make. I don't think I'd go any further than that. How about you, man? What's your poison tonight?
So I don't know if like I said, 48.5 out of 50, I think is what you had me at. So damn near perfect film for me. So there's not a lot to choose from here, but if I'm being honest, man, I would like to see a couple more bodies fall in this film. That's just the greedy part of me. And kind of something that sticks out to me, maybe not Shelley, Duvall, maybe not Danny, but one of the things that sticks out to me, obviously we get Dick's death. But how about maybe having 2 police officers in a snowmobile kind of come up and check up on them? And, that's immediately what sticks out to me, because obviously you're not going to have just some random people come in and check, because obviously of the snowstorm. So the 2 police officers that have access, to snowmobiles and things like that, in a storm that is this big, that could possibly go up there and check on them. Dick maybe calling them and telling them, hey, can you go up there and check on them? The police say no, the storm's too bad. So Dick's going to go anyways, but maybe the police are like, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. So they go up there. Two more bodies fall would be, a good 3 count would be good for me.
I mean, technically the count is 2.
You're right. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but I would still I think 2 more bodies is reasonable. I wouldn't want any more than that because I think
Me
the
neither.
film
Me neither.
does a fantastic job of showing you don't need that to make something scary. And they do a fantastic job at that. But if
Agreed.
I had the option to add a couple more bodies, yeah, I'm gonna agree with Mike's poison in the gold room tonight and say that a couple of other bodies would be beneficial to the film. Indeed. So that's our poison tonight. What's your poison? What's on tap for you tonight at the Gold Room? What are you changing about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining? Careful, he might come back and kick your ass. So, um, it is what it is. I mean, it is The Shining after all. So, anyways, what would you change? Comment down below. And what did you think of our first episode here? We're about to wrap it up with our final score and outros. Our final score for tonight's episode was I had it at a 96% on my score. Mike had it at 97%. Think about how high we scored this thing, and this thing still only comes out as 96.5% on the Overlook Drive-In score. It might not be matched again by any film on here. It could be. We'll have to wait and see. But the fact that we were as gracious and as kind and as complimentary as we were of this film, it's still 96.5% out of 100. What do you think of the score system, man? And is that about what you thought it was going to get?
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, you think about the love that we both have for this film. For me, there's only one other horror movie better than this. That's just my opinion that I think that I would score higher than this. And there's only two more films that I think are better than this, and they're behind me on the wall. So I think very highly of this film. It's one of my favorites of all time. And the fact that it's your favorite horror movie, I knew the score was going to be very high. But what other way can you go by kicking it off with The Shining? I mean, the Overlook Drive-In, you have to go with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. But yeah, man, I thought we did really good with scoring it. I thought we said we were going to go in pretty fair, and I'm very positive that we were as fair as we could be, and not being prisoners of just loving this film. But like I said, I'm not going to give something a negative when just to give it one. So love this film, always will. One of my faves.
Absolutely, man. I think you said it pretty fucking well. Stanley Kubrick's The Shining scores a 96.5% in the inaugural episode of the Overlook Drive-In right here on the Fandom Empire YouTube channel. Next week, we have I Know What You Did Last Summer, which has another incredible chase sequence in it. So I haven't seen this film I was a teenager the last time I seen this film.
Oh,
Dude, it's been
that's crazy. Last time I saw this film was 2 weeks ago. I'm not gonna listen, man. We'll jump into it next episode. I'm not a fan of the sequels, but something about this first film was, really, really good for what it was. And you mentioned it, one of the longest chase scenes outside of The Shining, and personally, I think possibly one of the best if you think about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I can't wait to dive into all that. By the way, we don't have all the details sorted out yet for our Patreon in terms of the Overlook Drive-In. It will be just the Fandom Empire Patreon, but we're gonna find a way to give you guys a chance to like vote on some movies. We probably won't be any movies. We'll probably throw up a list, and you guys can vote off the movies on the list, and we'll do like maybe one vote movie a month on our list of schedules. And then Mike and I have talked about doing watch alongs. This isn't set in stone. By the time you see this, by the time I'm saying this, it might be set in stone. We're recording this August the 1st. It airs August the 22nd. But that being said, we would like to be able to offer possibly one watch along a month if we can make it work over on Patreon. So that would be like a bonus episode of this you get now, whether it's a watch along or just another episode like this that's a bonus just for Patreon we can talk about. But it'd be fun to do a watch along for sure. Mike, any last words here before we get out of the Overlook for the night?
No, man, I'm super excited to bring you all into the Overlook Drive-In. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you enjoyed the show overall. I'm super excited to, for what we have in store. We got a great slate of movies that Sean posted up earlier that we're going to run through. So very excited for that. Very excited for October, right around the corner. It's crazy. It's August already. And by the time you're listening to this, we'll be just a couple weeks away from September. So yeah, man, super excited. I thought the show went absolutely well, absolutely phenomenal in my opinion, and no better movie to kick it off than with The Shining.
Absolutely. There you have it. Episode 1 in the books, The Overlook Drive-In, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, right here on Fandom Empire. Comment down below. What's another movie you'd like to see us tackle? This is the formula you're going to get each week in, week out, a different movie. Sort of walked through like this. For Mike, I'm Sean. Zach and Dean are going to close up the Overlook. We're going to get out of here and they can deal with all the crazies in room 237. Mike, where can everybody find you at? And what do you got going on, dude?
Yeah, man, you could follow me on Twitter at @MichaelBish_ and on Instagram at @MBish_. Check me out on the Take One podcast and over on Fandom Empire. A lot of great stuff coming along, including the Overlook, but a lot of stuff coming outside of the Overlook Drive-In as well.
Absolutely. You can check us out on Facebook. By the time this airs, we will have the Overlook Drive-In Facebook group. So join over there, and you can check us out on Twitter at Fandom Empire now, or support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. We'd appreciate the support. The support we get over there allows us to do what we do. Other things we got going on at Fandom Empire this fall and winter season. Mondays, which is today, the Overlook Drive-In. Tuesdays, you got the Fandom Empire show and House of the Empire. Thursdays is Moose Too Far, a Star Wars podcast. And Fridays is the Dark Match Drive podcast for all your wrestling needs. For Mike, I'm Sean. We'll see you next time on the Overlook Drive-In.